Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Can We Discuss with Yara and Petra.
For today's topic, we actually put out a Q&A because we knew that we wanted to talk about relationships, obviously, but there's so much that goes into them and that we can talk about. But this was one of the most requested topics, right? So today's episode, we're going to be discussing long distance relationships and all of the challenges, rewards, good and bad and ugly that come with it. So, actually, both me and Diara have had long distance relationships and we've been in long distance relationships. Um, for me, it was like in two different stages of my life. But I think there's obviously so many concerns when people first want to decide if a long distance relationship is even something that they should consider. What do you think are some of like the biggest concerns that people have when it comes to, entering or starting a long distance relationship?
I don't think somebody should start a relationship based on long distance.
Well,
That's
yes, you know what
one.
I mean. Like, yeah,
That's one.
I'm guilty
Two,
of
I
that,
think
by the
it's
way.
really, I know, I think it's really dependent on where you see that relationship going.
So,
يعني ما فيك تقولي للشخص أو تعملي you go into like a long distance or you agree to do long distance with someone and you guys haven't discussed what you want out of the relationship. I think it's
yeah,
very important before you both decide that you want to take your relationship, because it is taking it kind of to the next level if you're doing long distance,
yeah,
because it tests you in so many different ways, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
you need to both be aware of what it means for you guys to go into long distance. You
Mhm.
need to set your expectations from the get-go.
Yeah.
فيكم تقولوا انه ما بعرف حنجرب long distance، زبطت ما زبطت انه ما ثاقبت. If that's your thing, you can say actually we're gonna make it work regardless. Or you just خلص, you know you're at a stage in your relationship where you know you guys are gonna be together
Yeah,
for the long haul. So you
yeah,
decide that you're gonna make it work regardless, right?
مظبوط. Yeah, I
Um,
think I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense, and like it's something that I want to touch on. لأنه بحس إنه it depends on where you're at, which stage you're at in your relationship, وبعدين which stage you're at in life in general. صح? Like obviously as a teenager,
yeah.
or whatever, like we used to have friends in high school who like moved high schools and did long distance stuff. Whatever. هول أشياء silly يعني. But then we also have college relationships, and there's like a statistic out there that like 32% of like college students are in long distance relationships from like their hometowns here in the US at least. And I think that that's so silly. But some people do that. But I think the concerns with like if you're a college student doing long distance are very different than the concerns when you are an adult doing long distance. An adult as in like you graduated
Yeah.
college, you're a working professional, you know what I mean? So I think some of the concerns with college are a little bit more like surface level stuff of like, oh, cheating, of oh, ignoring me for a whole week, or هيك اشياء هبل يعني. And then when you're in an adult relationship, long distance, it's a little bit different in terms of the concerns. لأنه I would hope that you would be in a position where you're like your emotional intelligence is a little bit higher now as an adult, and you're able to deal with situations and able to, like you said, set expectations from the beginning and manage your expectations from the beginning. Whereas in college, it's like not even, it's like, oh my God, I love you, we're gonna do long distance, there's no way we're breaking up. Whereas like as an adult, you're a little bit more realistic and you're like, all right, what about time zone? How are we gonna plan to actually see each other? All of these things start to come to play, right?
Kind of comes into play as well. It reminds me of our episode with long distance friendships as well,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Because I think a lot of the same things kind of apply to long distance relationships.
yeah,
You need to have a strong base if you are to continue with a long distance relationship. But I
yes,
think the most important thing to think about is, why are we doing long distance? Is it a temporary thing that we have to do at the moment? Is it because I don't know, like my husband went, he did his MBA, so it was kind of we were adults, so it wasn't really long distance per se for the whole year. We were able to
Yeah.
visit each other quite often.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you need to understand where the starting point of the relationship is and where you want, or what the end goal of you going through a long distance relationship is going to be, for
Yeah.
you to kind of assess if it's worth it or not. But I
مظبوط.
just think a lot of people, even as adults, they go into long distance relationships not discussing their expectations. I think some of the very important things when it comes to long distance relationships is really having that open dialogue, open communication, understanding each other, having that trust. Because if you don't have that trust, if you don't have faith in why you're doing long distance, if you don't see the end goal or the purpose of it, then at the end of the day you're going to come back and you're not going to want to put in the effort as an individual or as a couple.
Yeah.
And I think there are so many beautiful things that come with also long distance, and it's not just about looking at the things that can go wrong, but it's also looking at the positive things. Missing
Yes.
each other is a great thing. Being
Distance
able
makes
to
the heart,
travel together is a big thing.
yeah, they say distance makes the heart grow fonder,
I
But I
mean, yeah.
think I'm going to go back to the point that you made in terms of understanding what's the point, like what's our goal here, what's the purpose. I think a lot of people tend to go into long distance, and unfortunately sometimes even as adults your emotions take over and you're not like thinking rationally, you're thinking more emotionally. And when that happens, you tend to forget about like, hey, like relationships is a partnership. And I like to think of it as like, if you had a partner in business, okay, you are going to plan for the future so you can set yourself up for success. And when it comes to long distance relationships, it's important to not look at it as like a business agreement, but look at it the same way in terms of like, all right, we are trying to do this to set ourselves up for a relationship that we want, a future that we see happening for the both of us. I have a friend who suggested this topic, but also was in a long distance relationship. And unfortunately, they couldn't come to an agreement as to like, and then what? Like what's the next plan?
Yeah.
Right now, we're long distance. I live here, you live there, completely opposite ends of the world that offer very different lifestyles as well. Where's the compromise? When are we going to have the discussion of like, you're either moving here or I'm moving there? Eventually, like mishkil hayatna, we're going to be in a long distance relationship, so we need to talk about that. And
Yes, if
as
it's not a
adults,
temporary thing, if,
yeah,
if it's a situation where you find yourself that you just happen to fall in love with a person that their life is in Europe, for example, and you're based in Dubai, you guys really need to be extremely honest with each other on what the end goal is for yourself and for the relationship. يعني إذا أنا مثلا
100%.
بحس حالي إنه أنا عايشة بدبي وما بحياتي حنقول من دبي مبسوطة كتير هون safety, security, stability, I don't know, my career progression, the friends that are around me, proximity to family.
Yeah.
And then the person that I'm with is in Europe and decides that actually I want to stay here. I want to get the passport, for example. So I don't see myself ever moving to Dubai. That's something that you need to look at, and you need to be like, okay, do I love this person enough to upend my life and join them wherever they are? Because if I don't see that compromise coming from them as well, or that at least conversation or open dialogue about it, then I don't
Yeah.
think this person is you're not with the right person. Do you see
Yeah.
what I mean?
And like you said, it also depends on like where you're at in your relationship when you make the decision to do long distance. Like me and Jason,
Yes.
our first year of dating was long distance. It was like a year after we made it official, where he was in Saudi and I was in Lebanon. And we always say it's long distance, but we like cheated long distance because he was in Lebanon every month. There was no time difference. Like, ما كتير حسينا بهيدا الشيء. And plus, like, we were friends for a really long time before we became, like, we decided that we wanted to be in a
Yeah.
relationship. So I think that that made it a lot easier for us because we used to understand each other's lifestyles, each other's communication styles. And I think that that's very important in terms of where you're at before you make the decision to say, hey, yeah, let's do long distance. You know, we knew that Jason eventually
Yeah.
had plans, like his parents had just moved to Lebanon. We knew that either direction, I was willing to move to Saudi and he was willing to move to Lebanon, depending on like what was going to happen with their business. So we had really talked about, I think, a little bit too many details before like we decided to do that. But I had just come out of a really long relationship and I knew that it was either going to be like a relationship that I wanted to be in or not, you know, like I didn't want an in between ground. But I think that's a big mistake that a lot of people do when they do go into long distance, is not managing each other's expectations and not being true to themselves, Kamena, as to what they want from that, you know?
I think for any relationship to work, not just long distance, but particularly كمان a long distance, for any relationship to work, الواحد لازم يكون كتير صريح مع حاله
صح.
بهو or هي شو بدها, right? You need to be completely honest and you need to be your toughest kind of, مش critic, but you need to be the one that's your one source of truth for yourself. Because if you
Yeah.
don't have that for yourself, if you're not able to figure that out for yourself, then you're never going to be able to figure that out for the other person, right?
مزبوط.
And
Yeah.
imagine putting on top of that, laying on top of that, another difficulty that comes to a relationship, which is long distance, that can be very testing at times.
Yeah.
It can blow up in your face. يعني
Yeah.
you can end up in a point where neither one of you in the relationship wanted to get to, you know?
100%. Yeah.
But I
It's
think that being said, with long distance relationships, when do you think it's worth it? Because no one ever knows the end for sure.
yes, 100%. I think it's just a feeling. I don't know what it is. I don't know. Me, I'm very in tuned with my gut. I'm very in tuned with like my deeper self. And yeah, if something feels right in my gut, that's what I'm going to do, you know? And if you know that person, if you have a sense of trust, like a base of trust that outside of loving each other, the biggest play, I think, in long distance is the respect for each other, right? Which are completely two different things because you can love someone and not show them the respect that they deserve or that you really
Absolutely.
feel. So,
Yes.
yeah. So that for me was like a big thing where something in me just knew. So, I think that's very important. I mean, you and Lalus also had a very strong base, obviously, before he moved to do masters. Were you guys engaged? No, you got engaged while he was doing his masters, right?
We got engaged. Yeah, we got engaged while he
Yeah,
was doing his master's.
yeah. Which is
Yeah.
also
So
so cool, I think, because you talked about this a little bit when you said there's benefits that come with long distance. And I
yeah.
think that you guys like took full advantage of it in terms of like traveling and, you know, you visiting him, you know, finding other places to go as well. Yeah. I think that's one of the benefits that we don't really talk about when we talk about long distance is you're opening up a whole new world.
You open up a whole new world for the person that you're with, but for yourself too. يعني
صح.
وقت Elias was doing his MBA, to me it was just about, because I've done my master's before, right? And I did it in Spain. I was also abroad.
Yeah.
And we were also dating at that point, but we were
Yeah.
still extremely young. It was early in our relationship when I went and I did my master's.
Yeah.
So it was two different experiences when I went to do my master's and when he did his MBA. He did his MBA, he was already in his 30s. So خلص at that point we've established our relationship. كل واحد منا عارف هو مين لحاله. We've established our own personalities, who we are, what we want to be.
Yeah.
And I think it really helps when you're working and you're able to kind of do whatever you want when it comes to traveling, when it comes to exploring, when it comes to really, I don't know, understanding what you need to either keep that relationship going, or keep things exciting, have fun together. And I think at that age, you've established, as I mentioned, you've established who you are as a human being.
Yeah.
So you know what are the things that are good for you and good for the person that you're with in that relationship. So you just end up kind of moving around or making decisions or communicating on that basis. I
Yeah.
think, again, communication is absolutely key. لأنه if there's no communication ما في trust. إذا ما في trust لشو ال relationship من أولها
كلنا
لآخرها.
100%.
Yeah. كلها على بعضها
100%.
لشو, you know what I mean? It's
me and
just...
you me and you are the same when it comes to like trust and respect. I think in relationships being like the biggest and most important drivers and elements in a relationship. لأنه أكيد you love them, that's never in question, but it's always about, are you
yeah.
communicating your intentions? Are you communicating your feelings? Are you, you know, reassuring them or getting the reassurance that you need as well, you know, because we're all human, and at the end of the day it's always nice to hear like that someone is like missing you or is thinking about you all day or whatever it is, you know, so that reassurance is also very important. But was there anything that like you and Lalous did during your time when you were doing long distance that kind of made it easier on a day to day, like something that you guys did to kind of create a sense of daily connection even though you're away?
I think one thing that is very important is making the person feel included. So regardless of, irrespective of where you are, if you're the person that stayed back home and the other person went to do something temporarily, and this is only talking about a temporary long distance kind of thing, you have to make them feel included in your life. You got to show them, you got to introduce them to the people that you're hanging out with, you got to tell them what the plans are, let them know what you're doing, where you're going, what is something that's fun for you, who are the people that you're close to, that you want to maintain friendships with, maybe later on in your life. Just letting them in on your thoughts, your feelings, your day-to-day, both sides. It's not just the person that went away, it's the person that stayed back home as well. Because we tend to forget that, and we shouldn't forget that. And then if it's a relationship that is كل واحد ميل من الأول لأنه كل واحد حياته ميل عم يشتغل ميل ومدري شو, to me, you always need to discuss the end goal. Like that's the only way for you to have a secure relationship. If you're not able to take a decision on the end goal, if you've been together for, let's say, 2 years as an adult, 2 years is not a little amount of time. It's a lot amount of it's a big amount of time.
It's a decent,
If you're not able to decide, to me, indecision is a decision in itself. And that's when you need to kind of, you know, press the brakes. Whoever you are that feels this, right? You need to kind of press the brakes and say, actually, that's not what I want for myself. And it's not about being selfish. It's just about being aware of what it is that you need and you want.
Yeah, I think that's very, very true. Not making a decision is a decision in itself. And I think if there's not that excitement to try to figure out the future together, then that's a big like red flag to say, hey, wait, maybe there's something missing here that I'm not, you know, seeing or admitting for that.
Again, this is applicable, يعني even إذا منكم عم تعملوا long distance, حتى لو أنتوا قاعدين بوجه بعض كل الوقت, this is still applicable, right?
أكيد. But like long distance just makes it even that more important to have those conversations, because in person, obviously you're going to talk about these things naturally, I feel. With long distance, you have to put in an active effort to make these conversations happen, you know?
You said you have to take an active approach to it as well.
Exactly.
So even from the beginning, even if you're not comfortable having these conversations,
you have to have them.
You need to put yourself, yeah.
That's when you know that you have to have a conversation, as if it's going to make you uncomfortable.
If it makes you uncomfortable, it's like ripping the band-aid. يعني أنا دايما بفكر إنه أوكي خلاص لازم أعمل هاي الشغلة. إذا عملتها هلا ولا أجلتها لبعد بكرة رح تنعمل، رح تخلص. So might as well just do it.
صح.
what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah. I think in terms of like also just like keeping that closeness and connection, me and Jason used to do a thing, and obviously like being in the same time zone makes this so much easier. But we would like
Yeah.
نخفى على التليفون سوا. Like quite literally كنا نخفى على التليفون سوا, which was really funny. بس كمان أنا كنت عايشة ببيروت لحالي وكنت خاف, so إنه having him on the phone
بتخافي؟
having him on the phone was like instead
That
of
would help
keeping,
you.
yeah, instead of keeping the lights on كنت خلص إنه جيسون على الخد, you know.
There's somebody
But
with you in the room. There's a voice,
there's someone with
It's
me,
like
exactly.
that's the younger version of you watching Friends to fall asleep now as adults.
Exactly,
Putting Friends in the
100%.
background to fall asleep, right? That's like your
Yeah,
comfort zone.
exactly. But I think إنه مثل ما كنت عم تقولي كمان إنه making them feel involved and included in every little thing,
Yeah.
as much as you can, obviously يعني مش إنه as much
Of
as you
course,
can,
but at the
it's
end
so
of the
important.
day, you don't want them to feel
Left
هيك
out.
claustrophobic. No,
Oh
مش
yeah.
بس, no, you don't want to make them feel like you're suffocating them with trying to be involved in every single thing. You want them to go ahead, explore. You want them to have this experience on their own.
مزبوط.
If you don't, if you feel like, if you feel the need to kind of want to know every single little detail, blah blah blah, then at the end of the day, maybe
There's no
that's an
trust.
indicator that you don't, yeah, you don't trust that person. ما بعرف, يمكن في
Exactly.
شيء غلط.
Yeah, 100%. طب what about keeping the spark alive from a distance? I think حكينا شوي, we already touched a little bit on it, but like for me it was like making sure that like he got like an exclusive look at my outfit before I went out, you know what I mean? Or booking so lame, I know, but like booking trips together and like having something to look forward to as well. هيك
Yeah,
اشياء
I
يعني
think
انا
that is, I
بحس.
think that is a big thing, and that's only to say if you're able to do these things, right? But I think keeping the sparkle alive is just really having these intimate conversations, always talking about your feelings,
صح.
making time, even if you're extremely busy, because we can all get really busy and sucked into our day to day lives, even if it's with somebody that you absolutely love, and in a
Yeah.
normal circumstance you would be with them 24/7. At the end of the day, you're going to have to make the time. You have to make sure that there's a time set out for you guys to have these conversations, or to
Yeah.
talk to each other, or to jump on a video call in between parties, or in between events, or I don't know, outings or something, just to
صح.
make sure that you guys are there. Maybe it's just cooking together, having your video camera on and cooking together at the same time, right? I think that
Yeah.
also really, really helps. Or scheduling date night where you guys are watching the same movie in two different places in the world. I don't know, but no, these little things can also, I mean, I'm not an expert, but no,
They make up, no, but they make
they
a big
can work
difference.
as
I
well.
think we're
Yeah,
not, it's not
yeah.
like we're experts, but we talk from experience as well. I was gonna say the cooking thing too. And I know that one of my friends here who went to Miami to do like a program for just like a few months, him and his girlfriend were relatively like, they've known each other for a long time too, but they were relatively new in their relationship. And that was one thing where he was like so excited because she like taught him how to cook while he was abroad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which was so
Yeah.
cute, I think. And I think it's a great way for a couple to really like bond virtually. That's how I bond with my grandma, so
Yeah.
yeah, or my mom. um but yeah, I think
Spend an hour with.
yeah, yeah. But I definitely think, I mean, like we said, there's a lot that goes into being in a long distance relationship, making it work, and there's a lot of good and bad and ugly that come with it. But I definitely think like if this is a relationship that you think is worth even going in and doing long distance with, then it's definitely obviously you've deemed it a relationship that's important for yourself, and like treat it accordingly. Make sure that you are putting in the effort, make sure that you are communicating, that you are planning towards your future together and what it's going to look like after this long distance phase. But yeah, just make sure that you're always like open, honest, and super vulnerable with each other, so that you're able to make it through together. Because there's going to be some days where it's not going to be easy, and you're just kind of going to feel lonely, and you're going to feel frustrated, and you're going to want to end it, so yeah.
I think setting the tone from the get-go, understanding, managing expectations. This to me is like a big thing. I always say managing expectations.
Yeah.
Managing expectations, communicating those, having the trust set from the beginning of the long distance, or even before the long distance starts, is really, really important. And I think always go back to each other, check in with yourself, check in with the person that you're doing, your partner, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, the relationship that you have. Just make sure that you're checking in every once in a while. Are we still doing okay? How's it going?
Yeah. For me, also a golden rule, I think, is always putting yourself in each other's shoes, and like understanding, how would I react if I was in that situation? How would I react if that happened to me? And long distance or not, like in relationships in general, that's a great rule that
Yeah.
You should follow, I think, because it really like helps. Anjad, it's crazy, like it's stupid, it's such a silly thing to say, but like it makes a world of a difference. At least for me, it's helped me a lot through my relationship with Jason, and I think it's just a cool little thing to always like keep in the back of your mind when you're thinking about it. But yeah, I think that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. Obviously, relationships, there's so much to dig into when it comes to relationships. And
so much to unpack.
Yeah, so much, too much to unpack. So this was the first episode that we really dive into relationships. We are so excited to, dive deeper into a lot more topics when it comes to relationships. So make sure that you share all of those with us, anything that you want us to talk about. But for now, give us some of your thoughts on your experiences. If you did do long distance, was it worth it? Was it not worth it? Did you do it with the wrong person, or did you do it with the right one? And yeah, what are some
tips? If it
was
the wrong person, what did you learn?
Yeah, what did you learn from the mistake? And then what are some tips and tricks that you can share with our listeners who are going through long distance and are trying to keep pushing through it, because it's not an easy phase to go through,
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But it can be all worth it at the end.
Mazboot. So yeah, as always, thanks for tuning in again with us this week on Can We Discuss with Yara and Petra. We're going to be waiting for you again right here next week. And as always, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. All right. Thanks everyone.